Welcome to A Pilgrim's Hearth, a podcast for the mom who needs a short rest in order to feel renewed for the journey. Join me, Kate Wilson, each week as we enjoy something good, true, and beautiful together in the same amount of time that we have to enjoy our coffee while it's still hot. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome back to A Pilgrim's Hearth. I'm happy you're here today, as I have on my mind one of my favorite fairy tales I was hoping to share with you. It may be one that you're familiar with, at least in part, but I would like for us to think about it together. The Ugly Duckling was written in the year 1844 by Hans Christian Andersen. He had been working on the fairy tale for over a year when fall came around in the year of 1843, and he met for the second time Jenny Lind. He was enchanted with her, and they became quick friends upon this introduction. He fell madly in love with the famous nightingale, and although she never returned his affections for her, they remained close friends, and she remained his muse for a number of his fairy tales, not the least of which was The Ugly Duckling. In fact, it is rumored that he finished it within a week after her departure that fall. What had taken him so long to author, he had finished quickly and smoothly when he focused on her when writing. It was loosely based on her story, From Rags to Riches. Anyway, to the fairy tale itself. If you are not familiar with it, then I'd love to share it briefly with you. Then we can talk about it for a moment, about how the beauty of this story can shape how we see the day ahead of us. The story begins. It was lovely summer weather in the country, and the golden corn, the green oats, and the haystacks piled up in the meadows looked beautiful. There's a mother duck sitting under beautiful green leaves, with green all around, because the beauty of green is good for the eyes, as the mother duck will tell her ducklings when they hatch. And she is sitting on her eggs, but they are taking quite a long time to hatch. They finally do, and her ducklings are all so beautiful. She loves them so dearly instantly, and then realizes that the largest egg of all has not yet hatched, and so she continues to wait. An older duck comes by and encourages her to leave the egg, as perhaps it is something different like a chicken. But she feels that since she has waited so long, she ought to see this through to the end. When the last egg hatches, she realizes that this animal is in fact different from her other ducklings. It is not as beautiful as her other ducklings, but can in fact swim like they can, so she decides that for a little while anyway, she will support this larger, uglier, but capable bird. Over time, the other birds in the yard, birds of all kinds, grow increasingly unkind to the duckling. But the poor duckling, who had crept out of his shell last of all and looked so ugly, was bitten and pushed and made fun of, not only by the ducks, but by all the poultry. The poor duckling was driven about by everyone. Even his brothers and sisters were unkind to him, and they would say, "Ah, you ugly creature, I wish the cat would get you." And his mother said she wished he had never been born. The ducks pecked him, the chickens beat him, and the girl who fed the poultry kicked him with her feet. So at last he ran away. When he ran away, he found himself among geese. They also said how ugly he was, and the poor duckling truly only wanted a place to safely lay his head at night. He only wanted a place to belong and feel at home. So he continues on his quest for something, though he isn't even sure what. But he follows beauty wherever he finds it. In fact, once he even sees swans and is stunned by their beauty. He ends up visiting with a woman, a cat, and a hen. They begin to ask the duckling what he can do. Can he swim? Lay eggs? Quack? And in his lack of ability to respond, he sets out again. This time, not out of shame or frustration, but in an effort to find something. But upon leaving, he finds himself out in the cold as winter sets in, and Andersen even tells us, quote, "It would be very sad were I to relate all the misery and privations which the poor little duckling endured during the hard winter." End quote. It was a hard winter. It was long and discouraging, and yet, when spring came, it brought a transformation the duckling was not anticipating, both externally, but also internally. He was now the most notable and beautiful swan on the pond. Even the children passing by said that it was so, and yet, Anderson tells us, then he felt quite ashamed and hid his head under his wing, for he did not know what to do. He was so happy, and yet not at all proud. He had been persecuted and despised for his ugliness, and now he heard them say he was the most beautiful of all the birds. He was actually beautiful, and he was actually humble. He was no longer ugly or going to be persecuted, and yet he did not parade around as one who deserves all of the praise. The hard winter had worked the pride out of his heart. This transformation story is so very different from a transformation story like Beauty and the Beast. In that story, the beast was first a man, or maybe always a man, but trapped in the body of a beast by magic and needed magic to transform him back in the man that he rightly was. But in the Ugly Duckling, he is always exactly as he is. It takes no magic to make him beautiful. He was always going to be a swan. He would have always turned beautiful. But he did not always have to turn out kind or humble or gracious. Those things happened because he chose, even through the winter, to continue looking for and gazing at beauty. They happened because he chose not to focus on the hard or the negative or the voices that called him ugly. He continually looked beyond himself, or away from himself rather, and to something beautiful. I know your days are hard. Mine are too. Sometimes the diaper changes and the spilt glasses of milk and the disruption that I wasn't expecting as we were almost out the door makes these days feel a bit like a long winter. But maybe we can learn from this little duckling. We don't need magic or a maid or more me time. What we need is to look away from ourselves, beyond ourselves, not at ourselves at all. We need to look at something beautiful, at someone beautiful, at the most beautiful Savior that made us exactly who we are and placed us in the exact places that we should be. And He has given us the exact people that He meant to. We do not need to be turned into something else. We just need to look at Him long enough that our insides change to someone kind and humble and gracious. Someone He always meant for us to be, but knew we could only ever become so by looking at Him. Let's leave this hearth together, friends, looking away from ourselves and towards the most beautiful one. What joy can we walk into this morning? The same joy that the swan swam in with the others like him. We can walk together in true joy in light of real beauty. Have a great day, friends.